baby. Let's go. Oh, yes. Welcome back into Club Fantasy FFL and welcome to Masterclass, our co-host and professor, Miss Stacy Perez at Stacy Perez 83 over there on Twitter. And as always, you can find me at Fantasy J 77 on Twitter. Stacy, how are you tonight?
I am great, Jay. I mean, I am so pumped. Like, we just had the draft. Now it's Best Ball Mania time. I've been like dying for Best Ball Mania to come out. So I'm so happy that it was out, came out yesterday. We are getting in the very beginning of it, and that's one of my favorite times to draft. Charlene, what's up? We see you in the chat. Get ready, girl, because we're going to be drafting, and I want to make sure you get in with us tonight.
Yeah, I was going to bring it up. You know, we had the national championship, we had the Super Bowl, we had the, the combine, we had the NFL draft now, and now it is time for best ball. It is best ball season live. This is the best time of year, right? Christmas Day happened Thursday, and it's just been like a continuous gift since Thursday. Had the day of rest on Sunday, and then now we're back into the best ball streets. Tonight's draft, like we said, is going to be Best Ball Mania. $15 million in prize money, $1.5 million to first place. Here's the interesting. This is the one of the largest tournaments out there, if not the largest tournament out there.
It's the largest.
150 max entry per person.
Mm-hmm.
Stacey, I had to do the math on this.
Yeah,
I had to.
Later here.
$25 per entry, 150 times. That's $37.50 if I'm not mistaken.
It is.
Yeah, okay. But you win first place. $37.50. Ooh.
Yeah. You just gotta win. You just gotta win first place. That's all it takes, right? You just gotta win first.
Yeah,
I only did 20 last year, and that's kind of where my max is for me right now, budget wise. But everybody's got to set their own budget for these things.
Yes, please make sure you're doing it responsibly. How many do you think you're going to get into this year?
So I will tell you, last year the way that it worked out, fortunately enough for me, that was my first year playing Best Ball Mania. The number of teams that I had advanced and the money that I made more than I put in, just a smidge more than I put in last year. So I came away with around $600 or so. Just being totally transparent, like that was way more than I even expected to win. So very happy about that. But now, so things have changed recently in Florida where I live, and we're no longer allowed to do pick'ems and those kind of things on any other site other than Hard Rock. So what that means for me is that I have that money sitting in my Underdog account that I can only use for drafts. So that means that that's what's going to pay for my drafts this year. So however many drafts I can fit in with that much dough is what we're going to be doing, Gator. So I'm thinking it's probably going to be around the same as last year, around 2021 drafts, something like that. But we're going to spend it till it's gone because I don't want to pay taxes on it. So
that's right. Absolutely. Well, real quick, talking about the Best Ball Mania 5, scoring and roster size is a little bit different. It's still a half-point PPR, but this one here is only 18 rounds. So we're two rounds less than what we had on the previous ones with the what was it, the War Room and the Big Board. This one here is gone up. Our entry on this one is $25. Again, still a 30-second clock. So, Stacy, the bell is about to ring. Class is about to be in session. You go ahead and get that draft board ready to go with us.
Get that draft board ready. Yeah, if you guys, exactly, Charlene. So Charlene wants to get into the draft with us. If you are out there listening, watching, and you want to get in the draft with us, go ahead, get on Underdog right now. I'm going to give you a couple seconds to get there. You're going to click on Best Ball Mania, okay? I am hovering over the little green enter button as we speak. Maybe has a couple more seconds. But what we're going to do is we're going to click that, and then hopefully we all end up in the same draft. If not, that's okay, because guess what? You're drafting Best Ball. So it's still going to be a good night. What's up, Mr. Scampers? I see you. Congratulations to your Panthers, as much as that pains me to say. That's the last we're going to talk about it, though. Right, Gator? No more hockey.
Yeah, I brought his I brought his little stab at me last night up on my show, and I didn't say anything to him then, but I will now. Congratulations, sir. Now bye.
Yeah, exactly. Now bye. All right, kids. So that should give you plenty of time if you are in the Best Ball Mania lobby here. Green enter button. I am hitting it right now.
Hit those buttons.
Hit those buttons, guys. All right.
But Stacy, while that's coming up,
Yeah.
let's talk about this large, extremely large tournament. I want to
Mm,
say it's going to be something like
yeah.
6,000 plus entries. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it's like 600,000. I think that's about where it was last year. I don't have that particular screen up in front of me now since I'm in the draft room.
No worries.
Also, I'm in the draft room, guys. There's about 6 other spots that are waiting to be filled for tonight's draft in this particular one. That's down to 5 right now, 4. So these are going to fill really
Go ahead.
quickly. So if you're out there and you want to get in right this second.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get that board up so we can see that.
Soon as it's fill Gator, that's when it'll give me the option to put that board
Ah,
up. So you gotta wait
okay.
till
I see what you're doing. Okay, yeah.
yeah.
You're good. You're good. You're good.
Which you know what's so funny though? So like when you jump on the dashboard, I don't know if anybody else has noticed this. Your number comes up as like the first one, and I always have to like remember, oh, I'm not like the first pick. Like it'll
Right.
change once everybody gets filled in there. So I get a little hopeful for a second, and then that goes away. Um, Still waiting on 4 people. I'm curious to see where I land in this draft spot. Normally, I for some reason always end up getting that like 8, 9, 10 range. Rarely do I get one of the first couple spots. So we're waiting on 3 more people.
Where do
Uh,
you prefer to draft? Where do you prefer to draft in a tournament like this?
yeah,
Do you prefer to draft early to get the
it really
stud, or do you want to draft a little bit later to get 2 of the top 20, top
yeah,
15 players?
it really just depends on what kind of build I want to do. At this point, with these, we're talking about doing, pretty high volume. All right, guys, hang on. We just filled, so I'm gonna throw up that draft board real quick, get that up on the board for everybody before we get started. Here we go. All right, Gator, can you see it? You got it up there?
We got her.
That's
We got her. Let's
right.
go. I want to try to get it to where we can see it. And I know it's going to cover up the masterclass. But that's, I think, is going to be okay.
Yeah,
See, Stacy, you're drafting out of the 11. So you're going to get
I knew
2 of the top 14 players here. So that's going to be fun.
it.
Starting, let's see.
All right, Charlene, you're Boom Chicka Boom, right? I'm pretty sure that's
I
true.
believe she is. I
I think
believe
so.
she is. Yeah.
Charlene's got the 4th pick, Lucky Duck.
Uh-oh.
I know.
So we should be starting here in just a moment.
Hmm.
Yes, Charlene says she is the 4th.
Yes.
So we are fired up. We are rolling.
Well, to answer your question, Gator, it just really depends on what kind of build I want to do. And with these kind of, drafts, these are high volume, not just doing just one of these, you're doing several of these. So, if there's a particular build that I want to do, if I want to make like a San Francisco stack, I better hope that I get the first pick, right? Because otherwise I'm not going to have McCaffrey as my guy. So it really just depends. So now that I know that I'm towards the end of the draft here, it kind of means, okay, I've got to start looking at other builds, other stacks, sort when we're doing correlation, which will come, once we get that, the calendar going out, the
Mhm.
schedule for the season, that kind of, tends to it tends to tell you a little bit about how you're going to be drafting.
These drafts seem to go pretty quick.
Mhm.
We've got what, 4, 5, we got 7 of the 12 are badges. So this
Yes.
should be a pretty challenging draft. If you don't know what the badges are on Underdog, those are depending on what color it is. I still haven't looked it up and to see exact numbers here, but so the reds are X amount of drafts that they've done.
Yes.
The blacks and whites, of course, are just
I,
same thing, but maybe a different number. So it's
And
like
I looked
50,
the
100,
other
whatever.
day. Yeah, and I really should have written it down because I did look the other day. I'm sure somebody in here knows, but I think it's the reds are one, thing, and then I think the black is like the highest one.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
that's great because we have 4 of the black and whites, and that means that we're gonna be facing off against some pretty good competition in this one here.
exactly.
Stacey, how do you prepare differently for the large tournaments in best ball compared to the smaller tournaments?
So, with the bigger ones, obviously you're going to be looking into, okay, like how many people are going to be in here? What's your max entry? Is that something that you're going to shoot for? Are you going to try to do, a little bit something different? But what you want to do in the larger tournaments, I tend to think, is that you want to have a little bit more of a return on your investment, right? So you're going to have more entries in there. You're going to have, kind of budget for that. All right, I am on the clock here.
Go right ahead.
Do I want?
I was gonna say talk us through this here, but Charlene is in the chat.
She
And
is.
even though she won't be able to get to this pick, but she can come back around here shortly and try to snipe you. And I've heard that she likes to do that in drafts.
She does. So I'm going to try to do something a little different than my norm. I'm going to take a running back first. It felt a little dirty, but I did it. I'm going to be here on the turn here in just a
Is
second. So let me
Yeah, does
see.
that make you feel better because you could take Saquon here at the 11 and you're back on the clock now, like
I
two picks
am.
later? Does that make you feel better with the choice of changing your decision on how you wanted to run this draft to go win in?
Yeah, it does a little bit. So, you're down here and like my options were going to be Puka, Carrot Wilson, Drake London. Those are going to be some of the players that I had my eye on. And I thought, okay, well, you know what? Why don't we go ahead and you're in the 11th spot. Why don't you just go ahead and grab Saquon? Let's do, an hero RB build and see how we like that. And I don't mind sharing that with Shirley, and that's probably going to be my plan. We're not too close to each other to be worrying about sniping. But I think that's going to be, and guys, these are for, sharing purposes anyway. So, I think I'm going to try that, running back build there just because I am on the end and it's going to be a really long time before I draft again.
Roger that. Oh, get back to the original question.
Yeah,
How do you
exactly.
prepare differently? So I'm sorry about that.
So
Go ahead.
yeah, so more entries. So I want to have more entries in a tournament like this. Like I said, I mean, I had 20 last year, which probably pales in comparison to what a lot of people do. I know there's some guys out there and girls, that do that max entry, that 150, and that's totally fine. And that's great. I just prefer to kind of spread my money around a little bit. Exposure rates are something else that you want to keep in mind when you're talking about larger tournaments, right? You're going to be putting in more entries. So what you want to do theoretically is you want to have, exposure to so many different players. You don't want to spend, every single one of your teams with, your favorite guy on there. Like I love Amon-Ra St. Brown. If I can get him, in every single draft, I probably shouldn't do that because, then I'm not exposed to some other guys that may have, even better seasons. Who knows? Hopefully Amon-Ra has a great season. But you just want to be able to plan for all circumstances, right? Lastly, stacking really becomes more important when you're talking about these larger tournaments. If you're in something smaller, whether it's just a single standalone league or maybe just a, smaller, maybe let's say 96 team tournament, something like that. It's not quite as important. So stacking your teams, coming up with unique builds, those kind of things are going to be, I think, a little bit more important when you're looking at larger tournaments.
Yeah, the larger tournaments scare me a lot of times, and I think they do a lot of people when you sit there and you see these, max entries of 100,
Mhm.
150, and
Right.
then like I know I'm not going to be able to go and do 150 drafts money
No.
wise, but I damn sure don't have the time to do it.
Right.
And then you see some of these guys that are maxing out every single draft,
Yeah.
and they have the time to do it. That's fine. But I guess what I'm getting at is I'm trying to get over that fear. It's just
Mhm.
this is a fun hobby.
Exactly.
Unless you're doing it to make your to make ends meet. I personally am not, but I've got
No.
to get over
Well,
that fear.
that's the dream, right, Gator? Is that we can
Well,
just maybe we'll hit one of these tournaments pretty big and we can retire early and just play fantasy football all day every day. I actually have a lot of friends that do play, pretty much full time. This is their full time gig, and that's
mhm.
amazing. Like I said, that's that would be such a dream, right? But that's not most people's situation. So a lot of folks are going to be able to do the 150. That's probably not most people. That at least is the focus of what this show's about.
Right. And you are on the clock here in just a few seconds. So if you want to talk through this next pick and then probably your following pick,
I am. I'm
um,
holding my breath right now, Gator, because I have a bad feeling I'm about to get sniped, and I'm really not going to be happy about it if that happens. Um, oh, yes. Okay. I did not get sniped. Excellent. I saw that blue pop up and I nearly had a heart attack. So come on down, Sam Laporta. It's taken me forever to get you on an underdog team. So
that
welcome
is
to the squad.
surprising. That is surprising that Travis Kelsey went before Sam Laporta. It might be the
Oh,
first time I've
totally.
seen that this year.
It absolutely is, and look at that, we are on the clock once again. We've got some really good options here. One that I particularly really enjoy is, the Slim Reaper, Devontae Smith here.
Okay. Okay.
throw him on my team.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it.
Yeah. I've got three great pass catchers here. When you're talking like we're in the fourth round now, at the turn, Zay Flowers just went, he would have been an option. But obviously Team 12 was trying to get that stack there with Lamar Jackson. So that was, something that I wasn't really surprised that they went before Devontae. I also had Michael Pittman on my queue, as somebody that I was looking at. I think is going to have a really good season this year now that, Anthony Richardson is recovered and, is hopefully be back for the full season. And then, there was Cooper Kupp, Tank Dell, who I have a ton of exposure to for Tank Dell, some other players. So I just kind of wanted to shake it up a little bit. I think this might be my first Devontae Smith pick of the season.
Yeah,
Oh,
that
Charlene almost took Laporta instead of Jacobs. Well, Charlene, I'm so glad that you took Jacobs.
that leads me right into my next question here, and that is, in these larger tournaments, how do you approach the player selection when competing against thousands of other teams here, and doing that with the thought on the exposure, I guess.
Exactly. Also real quick, shout out to Kim over in the chat. What's up, Kim? Yeah, so just kind of, thinking about, okay, roster construction, right? Is it everybody wants to go get, your big sexy players, right? Everybody wants Marvin Harrison Jr., this year, among many others that are out there. But sometimes, you don't want to be the same as everybody else. Like in something like this, if you make it on to the last few rounds, if you advance into the playoffs, you don't want to have the exact same team construction as everybody else because that's not going to help you stand out, right? If everybody else is scoring the exact same amount of points as you every single week, you're not moving up the ranks. So, I think it's really important that, yeah, you do go get your studs, you get your guys that are going to give you the best chance of being successful and having consistent, reliable production. But you also want to shake it up a little bit. So, that's why it's kind of important, especially again, I just can't, hammer it home enough, like having more than, a handful of these, that way you get to try, different builds, different things to do with your roster and what it looks like. You're going to be drafting in different spots, hopefully. So you'll get the chance to do that.
We started this a couple of weeks ago, and with the mindset that we're going to try to build it, going up to the larger tournaments, the higher high stakes tournaments, things like that.
Yes.
With what we've done the last 2 weeks, and then of course going into this week, would you recommend new best ball players doing a couple, 10, if they're going to play 10 best ball tournaments or 10 best ball leagues, would you recommend them do 10 like the $5 leagues and then graduate to this, slowly but surely, maybe do one of these and 5 or 10 of the smaller ones?
Yeah, it really just depends on what you're budgeting for. There's going to be so many that get released all through the off season. And we have no idea, what they're going to be when the plan is for those to come out, how much the price points there are going to be. But like save a chunk for the higher dollar entries because they're going to have a higher return for you. Save a little bit for the smaller ones. You're going to have all the same people drafting in all the same ones. All these guys with their badges, they're drafting in those $5 ones just as much as they're drafting in these. That's why they have those badges because they've done so many. So it's not, I wouldn't say that it's like a difference in like competition level at all. So it's just really just a budget, thing about, what you're looking for. So I think that anyone that's out, I'm going to try to get, throw in at least one or two. And I tried to get almost every single one that was out last year. And of course, with your cheaper ones, they're going to fill faster, right? So that's not always an option, especially if you're, this isn't your day job, you're at work during the day. You can't necessarily, pop off for a 45-minute draft, in the middle of the day. Because that happened to me a few times. Like I would see that one got released and I thought I'll just do it when I get home that night. Nope, it was already full. So just kind of that to be mindful of, but they're going to have so many opportunities all throughout the season for you to draft. So if you want to do some, bulk up right now, right after the draft, or if you want to kind of maybe wait till the middle of the season and kind of wait towards little August, it's kind of fun to do that too, to kind of see what, ADP looks like, to see, where guys are going in drafts, the different trends that are popping up, what the different stacks people are doing. So I don't know if that answered your question or not, Gator. I just kind of went down a rabbit hole there.
Yeah, no, that is perfectly fine. And I think it does answer the question. But just like what we did here, going to your last point there, we did a couple drafts before the NFL draft, which of course in best ball includes the rookies.
Yes.
We're going to see a huge change in ADP with some of the landing spots, how people feel about the landing spots and that sort of thing. And that'll fluctuate all throughout the best ball season. But that is one nice thing. I know most sites do this, but on Underdog, they have the rankings right there. And that,
Mhm.
as far as I understand, they update those pretty regularly.
Yeah.
So you can keep an eye on those. Of course, you can always import other ones as well. You're about to be on the clock here in just a quick second. So, Pat, a couple quarterbacks here in this round have gone off. So we've had about looks like about 8 quarterbacks go off altogether.
Yes. Isn't
Where
that wild? Look at where Mahomes went. Mahomes was like the last one there.
Mhm.
That's it. See, and that's a trend too. Like you're seeing Patrick Mahomes be one of the later quarterbacks. Joe Burrow went before him. CJ Stroud. Um, Come here, my little Roma Dunze. Join the
I was
squad.
I
I
was
love
I
him
was
so much.
wondering when you were gonna snag him.
Oh man, I love him so much. I love him so much more too now that his landing spot is in Chicago. I think that they're just going to have I think they can support, all three of those receivers and make them fantasy relevant. Ooh. Okay, I'm going to do this and hopefully this doesn't work out poorly for me. I'm going to take Jordan Addison there with my pick and hope that their offense isn't isn't is I don't know. I just have some concerns with their quarterback situation, so I'm hoping that offense does well. But I'm a big Jordan Addison fan
Well,
anyway.
I'm
So
glad you took Roma Dunze there because that leads right to the next one.
yeah.
Uh, in these larger tournaments,
Mhm.
especially in the larger tournaments, how do you balance selecting high upside and
Yeah.
minimizing the risk?
Yeah, so I mean, what you want, with all your guys, right? You want guys that have the opportunity to get on the field that are going to be able to get targets for you, because that ultimately is going to lead to fantasy points. So when you're looking at that, that's kind of what the kind of guys that you need to target. So figuring that out means like you're doing your research, you're listening to all those smart people that are out there on the internet, that are having all those stats for you, and kind of looking at depth charts and things of that nature. There's just so much information available, like freely available on the internet now, that if you're going to be doing these drafts, of course you can go in and wing it, sure, but why not do the research, put in the time, to maybe make your drafts a little bit better.
We're coming up on that third of the way through mark here. I just want to remind everybody, if you're over there on Twitter, come join us over on the YouTube. See your comments a lot better there. And please, if you're on YouTube and you haven't already, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe button. We'll be here every Tuesday. Got some exciting news at the end of the show for you guys that are wanting to get involved and play best ball with Stacy and I. So keep with us. We got some exciting news coming. Some exciting
Yeah,
news. Stacy had to break it through me today. So I'm looking forward to it.
I did. Get ready, guys. Make sure make sure you stay till the end. Make sure you stay till
Absolutely.
the end.
So
Make sure.
Stacy, you talked about when you took Saquon Barkley at the very beginning
Yes.
about going maybe a little running back heavy. It doesn't seem like you went that way
Oh no.
because
So
of the
I
way
was
the
going to
draft board
do.
fell.
Yeah, so I was actually going to do, so since I took Saquon, physically, I am unable to draft another running back. I just physically cannot do it.
Is that
Uh,
is that a disease, or is that something that is the doctor has?
I don't know that we're going to say disease because I don't feel like there's anything wrong with it. It just need to be fixed, right?
Okay.
So
Fair, fair.
no, guys, I'm just kidding. That's you guys know I've already said it like a bajillion times. Tend to go a little more wide receiver heavy, especially in these when you're, starting 3, potentially 4 wide receivers with that flex spot. But I decided this one based on where I was drafting, take one of the best players available, which I think is going to be Saquon. So we're going to do a little bit of a hero RB build here. And I'm taking a look at my options to see who is left on the board to be my RB2, which, quite frankly, I think is probably the least valuable position when you're looking at your roster construction. You can throw just about anybody in there and they're going to work for you for an RB2. That and probably tight end, unless you have one of the top guys, are going to be, your lower producing players. And it looks like some of those guys are kind of coming around the corner here. We are in round 7 now. We're starting to see Ramondre come off the board. You guys going in the round before, guys like James Conner, David Montgomery. Those guys are going to be kind of in that second RB range for me. So not to spoil anything, but that's kind of what I'm looking at right now. And since I get to almost pick back to back, we'll see what I do. Who knows? Stay tuned.
Well, how do you employ different strategies in these larger tournaments to differentiate your team?
Yeah, I mean, so I think it really just depends for me where I'm drafting. Like if I'm drafting in the first like 2 or 3, picks, if
Hmm.
I'm drafting at the end, it's really going to tell me this is how my build is going to go. This is what it's going to look like. These are the players. Once you start doing more of these, you're going to get a real good idea of where ADP is, and you're going to know, okay, if I'm drafting, with the last 2 or 3 picks, I know that these are the guys that are going to be there, right? I know that there are going to be just a few, ones left, and this is what I'm going to have to choose from at that point. Or if I'm, drafting up top, I've kind of got my pick and kind of decide, okay, maybe I really want to do a lion stack here. So, I'm going to take Amon Ra here, and maybe I take him a little earlier than I should, which I don't know. He's going like number 6 overall. So what does that mean at that point? But just kind of, give an example. Hey Cindy, what's up? See you in the chat. Pet Daddy, also see you too. Yeah, you gotta grab Laporta. Oh gosh, you gotta grab St. Brown first before you can get Laporta. But good luck with that. That's gonna be, I feel like that's gonna be a pretty tough build to do as a Laporta St. Brown one, just where they're falling right now anyway. Last year, man, you could do that all day long last year. Jordan Love going off the board. All right, I guess I gotta do what I had planned on.
I was wondering if that was the thought process when you took Rome, and was wondering if he was going to make it back around to you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So taking Caleb Williams there, and let's see. I'm gonna go a little Zamir White
Okay.
for my RB2. He's a guy
That'll.
who came out of the draft unscathed.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it. I like it.
So another thought, Gator, I'll just tell you. So I had Raheem Mostert on my board on my queue there, as well as Jalen Warren, and I have taken so much of Raheem Mostert. So I thought, let's go with Samir here.
Yeah, I think that's probably a smart move. Again, going back to the
So
diversifying your roster, across
exactly.
the board. So well,
And
we got a little bit of time for your next pick. This
exactly.
one,
Well,
this
I saw a
one.
tweet real quick just about Samir White. Gator, I saw a tweet the other day that said he's changing his jersey number to number 3, and the tweet was like, "This gives bell cow vibes," and I was like, "Yes, yes, it does." So that's kind of been on my brain a little bit. Ooh, Lad McConkey going in the 8th. Sorry, I didn't mean to. I
Ooh.
saw a shiny object like squirrel and got distracted. But yeah, so Zamir White's been definitely one that I've kind of been, thinking about, trying to get a little bit more exposure to. Lad McConkey is a fantastic pick. So that team that just got him, MTD Drew, 1990, good job.
You liked his landing spot at the Chargers.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Who else is there? I mean, obviously Quentin Johnston didn't do that great last year. Who knows
Yeah,
what his
but
will be, but
wide receivers that have brick for hands can't do good as wide receivers.
that's true. I mean, man, it's just so hard not to be negative with how his season ended up. So
Sorry.
yeah, no, it's so tough. Like, it's just not for me. It's not for me.
What are the advantages and disadvantages of targeting players from high-powered offenses in these larger tournaments like Ball Mania 5?
So I'm going to start with the bad, right? So, obviously you have to pay more for those guys. What's up, Crispy? We see you in the chat. Oh, Bricks, ha, Bricks for hands. Love it. Yeah, Conso is you have to pay more for those guys. You got to spend a little bit more money on those high powered guys. You want Marvin Harrison Jr., you better pay second round value for him because that's where he's going. He's not going to go any lower. And I think he went right for the team number 10, I think in the second round. So right after me, I think is where he went. We can scroll back up in a second and check that. But and if you're willing to do that, that's totally fine. But just kind of keep in mind that the rest of your team may suffer a little bit if you're taking those higher, bigger producing guys right off the bat and you want to load up on those. Pros, right? You've got a stud that's going to reliably put up numbers for you. So there's nothing better than that, going in knowing that you've got a guy that you don't have to worry about every week. So, just a few advantages, disadvantages, nothing, absolutely too crazy at all. But, like you just have to know what you're willing to pay, what you want your build to look like, essentially. So, you just have to make it make sense.
Yeah, so it's pretty much the same as if you're in a normal redraft. you're just going to suffer the
Mhm.
depth part of it.
Exactly. Exactly.
And sometimes, especially in best ball, that's not a bad thing because, again, like we've talked about multiple times over the last few weeks, you want the boom bust,
Mhm.
and the way you're going to get those boom bust is because you had to go get them because there wasn't the
Right.
options. You had to fill up your roster. So
Exactly. And like, so I mean, I'm drafting in the 11th spot right here. So that means I'm probably going to be reaching for some guys, because it's going to be so much longer before I get to draft again. Which Mims, Chris down here, Chris B. That's like I'm probably going to end up reaching for somebody here if he's still on the board, which hopefully he will be because his ADP is a couple rounds after this. Um, but the way it works out, I may have to grab him now. I love that Jonathan Brooks. Gosh, Brooks is on the brain now. Jonathan Brooks pick. He was one of the running backs that I had on my list here to grab. And I'm going to go ahead and do this. Like I said, I am going to reach just a smidge, but I'm going to grab Kirko because it goes with my build. I'm not worried about Michael Penix coming in and taking his job just yet. Hopefully not. Anyway.
yeah, I love the Jonathan Brooks pick there. I believe that was what it's going to be
Yeah.
team 9.
Team
Perfect landing spot for Jonathan
Oh
Brooks.
my gosh, and, assuming that he's gonna be able to play at the beginning of the season,
Mhm.
my gosh, what a great spot for him. Unfortunate that he goes to a not so great Panthers team, but couldn't have asked for a better spot for fantasy-wise, though.
Yeah. We've talked about this in the smaller tournaments, but
Mhm.
how important is it to monitor draft trends and adapt different strategies in these larger tournaments?
Oh, I think it's huge. I think you absolutely have to if you're planning on drafting high volume, drafting, a large amount of these teams all throughout the season, you have to pay attention to those kind of things. If you're only drafting a couple, it's not that important, but kind of what we're talking about, what we're sharing here is, the importance of drafting so many teams. And so when you're talking about, like what are the trends going on right now versus what ADP is going to look like come August, drafts are going to look completely different come August for a variety of reasons. People are going to get injured. People are going to get traded. Keep in mind June 1st, right? That deadline is going to hit where some guys that cap, money is going to be a little bit different. Those cap hits, meaning guys are potentially going to get traded, get moved around. So there could be another round of guys moving teams. Training camps are going to open. Guys are going to be out there that we didn't even really have on our radar that are going to be impressing and making news, and then showing up in the later rounds of our drafts. Like for example, like Demario Douglas last year. He wasn't somebody that I had even looked at during my draft research. And then towards the end of the season, he was really coming on in Patriots camp. And I ended up taking him in several places in the end, of my drafts. And, Patriots aren't that great, but he did end up, putting up some flex numbers for me. So, you're just going to see so many different things pop up throughout the season that are different than where they are today as it stands here at the end of April, less than a week after the draft.
Yeah, and it happens every year.
Mhm.
Every year, somebody pops off
Oh,
in
yeah.
in training camp. So
Mhm.
let's see. We are in round 11, just coming up on the second pick in round 11 here. Blake Corum there, Stacy.
Yeah, yeah. I actually had, like I said, I had Jonathan Brooks on my target there, but I like that spot where Blake Corum landed there with the Rams. I'm taking him as my third running back overall. So I'm not expecting him to be the starter there, but I do think, they drafted him. They're going to want him to produce. He is going to produce. It's not always going to be just Kyron Williams, there in that Rams backfield. So, I have a good feeling about Blake Corum. I think he's a, great running back, one of my higher ones. He and Trey Benson were kind of my 1 and 2 for me, going into this season. So I like his landing spot. I think he's a great player. Talent plus opportunity, right? That's what you're looking for. That's what Matthew Berry always says. So talent plus opportunity equals fantasy success. So that's why I'm grabbed him out of the options that I had left over for me.
Yeah, this doesn't pertain to particularly to best ball, but
Mhm.
go over to Club Fantasy FFL.com. Chris Molina dropped his article today on why he thinks Kyron Williams is still a buy, even with Blake Corum there right now. So it's a good read and a very, Very smart cat giving out that information. I just wanted to plug his article real quick while we had the chance talking
Absolutely.
about Blake Corum there.
Oh yeah.
Jaden Daniels and Justin Herbert, quarterbacks in this round off the clock, or off the board. You're coming up on the clock here in about 2 picks.
Yes.
Charlene is on the other side of the draft board, so we don't have to worry about her trying to snipe you right now. Leo Shakir's off the board. You're next on the board. What are you thinking right here after taking Blake Corum in the last pick?
Okay, so I'm taking a look at my roster right now. I've got 3 running backs. I've got 4 wide receivers. I'm looking at the wide receivers that I have left, and we're looking at kind of like a bit of a tier break. The guys that I had on my queue, Shakir, Myers, those guys are gone. So this is kind of where I know that, like, all right, those guys are the ones that I was looking at. Those are the guys that are going in this round. I'm kind of spot on with what this draft is giving me. So I'm going to go with Josh Downs here. Am I worried about Adonai Mitchell? Not that much. Josh Downs has great connection with Anthony Richardson. He's been there for a year. He knows that offense. I'm not really too worried about that. And now I'm going to go grab another running back here. Kind of got a couple guys on my list here, but I'm going to grab somebody that I just couldn't quit last season and really just loved so much, was Zach Charbonnet from Seattle. They love to run the ball up there in Seattle. Well, Pete Carroll did. I don't know what this new team is going to do, but hopefully they still like to run the ball.
Yeah, I got to bring this up since you brought it up. Scroll back up just a little bit here. So we had a 2 full rounds and a couple picks. Adonai Mitchell went before Josh Downs. You are not afraid.
No.
Explain yourself.
Okay. So right, I get it. AD Mitchell, I am high on AD Mitchell. I think he's a great receiver. I liked him more than Xavier Worthy coming out of Texas. Just like I said, Josh Downs has been there. He's got that connection with Richardson. And AD's the new kid on the block. So, and I think they bring in different skill sets, the 2 players. So I think there's still room there to have them be productive. I think the loser really in that whole, Colts offense is going to be Alec Pierce, which no big surprise after last season.
Kimberly says she knows she's weird, and you're not weird. We all love Blake Corum's jump cuts.
Yeah, we do, girl. Yes, we do.
You're not
Love
weird.
Love it, Kim. Well, Gabe Davis goes. He was on my list too, and Zach Charbonnet and Josh Downs saved me from taking Gabe Dave.
Yeah, Quentin Johnston goes before Gabe Davis. Quite surprising.
I don't know about that. I don't know how I feel about that.
This is how Chris B feels.
Yeah, exactly. Bricks. Not my team. So, but you know what though? Maybe Derek has a lot of other players, and he's trying to get some exposure to Quentin Johnson in case he has a huge turnaround his sophomore season. So, did he take Glad McConkey? No, he didn't.
But he did stack him with Justin Herbert. So if you're going to do it, that's a smart move, I guess.
Isn't that wild? Look at that. Justin Herbert in the 11th round. Like, let's just talk about the term closing line value right here for a second. Okay. So closing line value, right? You draft a player in a later round, and he's probably going to outproduce where you drafted him. So that's what you want. You want guys that you got tremendous value on. I can't even begin to fathom Justin Herbert in the 11th round. There's no way, Gator, right? There's no way that he produces 11th round kind of production this year, right? There's just no way.
Yeah, it's probably going to be more like 14th, 15th round, no?
Exactly. No, stop that.
I led you right into that. I'm sorry. No, he's
did. Come on now. No. I think he's going to be great. I think they're getting more protection back there for him. Hopefully he doesn't get, hurt again this year. I think it's going to be good for him. What's up, Jim? See you over there in the chat. You should be in school, sir. So hope you're paying attention to class.
What I find interesting, maybe not interesting, but when we go back and look at this particular draft here, I would not be surprised for anybody to go, Justin Herbert was the steal of this draft in the 11th round. Yeah, even though it's a 1 quarterback deal, that's probably averaging somewhere in that 20 to 24 point range per week right there, and give you spike weeks of 30, 35.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's completely on the table, I think, for him. What's up, Jamie? See you in the chat over there. Hello.
What we've talked again. This is another question that we talked about in the past. But what role does diversification play in your approach when drafting multiple teams in these larger tournaments?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just kind of like a lot of what we had just talked about, like you really want to, it's so, so, so important to really get out there, take players that you're not always taking. I mean, look, go get your guys, get the guys you want. My rule of thumb for me, I'm a Packer fan. I got to have at least one Packer on my team. Okay. That is my rule. Can't leave a draft without a Packer. Now last year, here's a cautionary tale for you. Last year, I had like 40% exposure rate to one Marvin Mims from Denver. Gator, how'd that work out for me?
Yeah. Who?
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, did it tank my teams? No, it didn't, but it also didn't help. So that's why, you kind of got to keep in mind, okay, look, I may love a player, love his talent, love his, potential, but be real careful on stacking up on those guys and, you know, making, over 40%. I wish I knew numbers and things like that and had, stats and research and stuff for you that I could tell you like over what percentage, is kind of in that danger zone. I don't. I'm sure somebody out there has.
Mm.
But I certainly don't because God knows I went to law school, not math school. So anything involving math is not my jam.
So
But
there's no mathing in law.
oh God, see, that's the evil joke, Gator, right? Is that I didn't, I want to do a law school, so I didn't have to do math, and now I spend my days calculating alimony and child support amounts. So, you know, evil joke on me.
Yes, absolutely. You were coming. You were back on the clock here in just a second. A couple rookies coming off the board here with Jalen Polk,
Mhm.
get on the same team. That's something that always I question. And I'll let you. You're on the clock here, so I would kind of ramble for just a minute as you take these couple of picks here. But you brought up the Marvin Mims thing and having the what you feel is overexposure, and I can agree that 40% is a bit much, especially for a rookie. And I know we don't have what we want them to be at, but on one team, for instance,
Mhm.
when you have 4 or 5 rookies on that team,
Yeah.
and again, we're talking about Xavier Leggett, which okay, still not a great player in college, go into one of the worst in offensive teams from the previous year. Same thing with Jalen Polk, even though he was decent in college, still going to what was a bad offensive team the previous year.
Right.
How much do you want to be exposed to these rookies, especially onto one team? I'm not saying you don't want to have a Jalen Polk share here or Leggett share here,
Right.
but having them on the same team.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really important, right? You don't want to overload yourself with rookies. While you were talking, I just went through and looked at my roster right now. I've got 4 rookies. I've got a rookie quarterback in Caleb Williams. I've got 2 running backs with Blake Corum and Marshawn Lloyd. And then I've got, Ruma Dunze over here as well and the receiver. So I guess now I have to go grab a rookie tight end. Is that how that works?
You
Uh,
better.
I think all the good ones are gone though. I don't think Breck Bowers is still available, although we can check Gator and see. Um, but yeah, I mean, you just really want to be careful with that. You don't want overexposure to rookies, especially guys that not really sure how things are going to turn out. And what that means is like the guys that are being taken later on in the draft, right? Your guys that are maybe third, fourth on the depth chart in certain teams that are going to be fighting for production, fighting for targets. They're coming in, they're learning a system, they're getting their feet wet, brand new to the NFL. So they may not produce until later in the season. And that's typically what happens, with a lot of these rookies. I'm not talking about like Marvin Harrison or any of those guys. That's forget that. What I'm talking about are the ones that are going right now in the 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th rounds, right? Your guys that need to, kind of get used to the NFL. Completely different game than college. I think everybody is very aware of that. So they're not always going to come in and immediately pop off for you. So just being careful, with how you're taking them. You don't want to, overload the back end of your draft with a bunch of rookies because you have no idea how they're going to produce. Maybe you hit on a Puka and that's awesome. That's probably not going to happen in every single draft, right? So you just have to be careful with that. You just kind of have a little bit of balance on your team. Sometimes it doesn't hurt to go with all reliable.
Yeah, I mean, DeAndre
Yeah.
Hopkins is not a bad pick.
Exactly, exactly. Or like an Adam Thielen up here, right? That's not
Mhm.
a sexy pick at all. Not Adam Thielen, right? He's old and he plays for a bad offense, but
Consistent.
he's consistent and he's productive. And you're talking about the 13th round here. So, you can take a dart throw on somebody else because you've got, a little bit of balance there with somebody who is going to be putting up some numbers for you, probably more like flex spots, for you, depending on, when you decided to take receivers. Talking about Adam Thielen specifically here, but that's why you just kind of want to be a little bit careful there. Don't go too crazy. But again, you know what? If you want to go do a full rookie draft just because you want to do it, these are the kind of drafts to do it in, right?
I
Ones where you're
mean,
not going
I
to be spending
would,
a lot of money. So
yeah, I'd probably, they already had the rookies and sophomores. I don't know if they're going to bring that back. They may.
that's
That
right.
seemed to be a pretty popular one. Um,
Mhm.
I think Jamie was in one of our chats, in one of our group chats, and he was complaining about the rookies and sophomores because he didn't realize that, I guess, that there's only so many rookies and sophomores, so the draft was super
Yeah.
small. I don't remember what the overall total rounds were in that draft, but I believe Jamie did one of those. What are some common mistakes to avoid when doing these larger tournaments?
Yeah. So, mistakes and everything that you can. Oh, I'm on the clock. Hang on just one second.
Oh, see, I
Um,
did it to you again. I did it to
that's
you again.
okay. That's okay.
Well,
Speaking of,
forget the question and just talk through this pick.
yeah, so right there, so I grabbed Demario Douglas right there. So he's going to make my sixth receiver. So we kind of have talked about in the past, before with, how many receivers you want to take versus how many, versus running backs, all the different things. Looking at some guys right now, I don't actually have anyone in my queue, so I'm kind of playing a little fast and loose with the with my own rules here. So I'm going to grab somebody that I think has got some pretty high upside in Malik Washington
Okay.
for
Okay.
the Dolphins there. Grabbed him. Gosh, I need to chill out with these rookies, right? So now I've got more. But really that's kind of what I was looking at there. I was like, all right, so I want to hit 7 receivers for my team. I've got 5 running backs. We are in the 16th round here. So we've got 2 more rounds left to go because remember, this is going to be an 18-round pick, or an 18-round draft rather, sorry. And I might go grab one more running back, probably grab another receiver. I'm gonna stay with a 2 QB, 2 tight end build here. Um, like we talked about last week, those are going to be your teams that have a little bit more potential to advance. Your teams that have the 2 quarterbacks, that have the 2 tight ends there. And I've got 2 pretty studly tight ends in Sam Laporta and Luke Musgrave. So I'm going to leave that as it is and then just load up there on running backs and receivers for the rest of my draft.
Well, I will say this, Stacy, is it doesn't seem to be just you. I'm looking at the board, and of course, I'm only looking at 3 or 4 rounds here of the picks, and it's not just you that seems to be taking a lot of the rookies at this
Yeah,
point. I think this time of year, we are such rookie fever is still bleeding
exactly.
into these drafts. So,
Exactly.
if you're going to make that mistake now. So now I'm going to go back to the question here: is what are some of the common mistakes to avoid when in these larger tournaments?
So I think, you don't want to be a slave to ADP. I mean, like Bob Harris has said that like numerous times. Give credit there where credit's due, but you don't want to be, just stuck on, okay, ADP says I have to take this player here. I really want to get, another player, but ADP says, listen, ADP is like the speed limit, right? It's a suggestion, not the rule. Is that how that works, Gator? Right? Speed limit is a
Well, I
suggestion.
always heard when it comes to street signs,
Yeah.
if it had a line around the sign, it was just a suggestion.
Is that real? I don't know.
Every street sign has a
Well,
line
it
around
it
it.
does? I was like, "Is that real? Is that a rule just in Georgia?" I don't know.
No, it's
I'll have to find that out. Maybe get some of my friends off some, speeding tickets. No, like, if you like a guy, go get him, right? I mean, don't do anything crazy. Like, you don't need to go get, let's say JJ McCarthy because I just popped up right in front of me. You don't need to go get JJ McCarthy in the second round of your draft, right? Because he's going to be there for you in the 16th. But if you want Marvin Harrison and maybe you have the 111, you better get Marvin Harrison because you're not getting him after that. So, just kind of have to keep in mind with where you are, in your draft. But that's the biggest thing. I think, you don't have to, it's not that's not a rule. Like, so just, go get the team, put the team together that you want, that you're going to be happy with. right? Because this is your team at the end of the day. You have to be happy with how you built it. Last thing too is that, especially when we're talking about these larger tournaments, these are not a one and done, right? If you want to do one and done and go play something that costs a little bit more entry fee, these are meant to be high volume. So don't just say, oh, I'm just going to do one Best Ball Mania.
Mm-hmm.
You might as well throw your money out the window. Because I mean, could that one team win it? I'm sure it could. What the numbers are on that, gosh, only knows. I'm going to be up here in a second. Gosh,
Yeah.
I can't have anybody in my queue. Give me
I
a quick
just I just wanted to take it back for just a quick second to
yeah.
your street sign analogy here.
Yes.
ADP is like a yield sign. It's
Hmm.
just there to caution you before you make a
Yes,
overly drastic jump, right?
exactly.
As you brought up, Bob Harris says, "Don't be a slave to ADP," and the Badge Bros say, "Scroll the f down." So
So
there
real.
is multiple ways of saying it, multiple ways of doing it. There's no sense in scrolling so far down that it's 4 rounds,
Mhm.
you know, but you can go around round and a half
You can.
and do that. So that is not nobody's going to be mad at you for that, except for that person that would have got them in a fourth round or
100%.
4 rounds later. So
100.
Charlene says, well, that's supposed to be my last pick. Luke went and I was in the middle of getting the kids out of the bath.
Oh, Charlene, kids just ruin everything. Come on. They're ruining our drafts, getting them out of the bath. Tell them you're going to have to teach them to get themselves out of the bath when mommy's drafting.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. Oh, how do you what strategies do you employ trying to identify sleepers?
Yeah. So, this is going to be where, we kind of I touched on it a little bit earlier.
Mhm.
Um, there's so much good information out there right now, that's free. You can go on Twitter and you can follow super smart people that are doing their research. You can do your own research. There's so many things that are available to all of us now. You just have to know where to kind of look. But follow the people that you really like, the ones that you're listening to podcast on. Follow those people. They're going to have some little nuggets out there. And then you're also, what I really find important, Gator, is following your local team reporters, right? So you want to go grab, all these different local teams. You want to look up who are their beat reporters, who are their everyday boots on the ground, who are going to know exactly what's going on in training camp, what the rumors are, those kind of things. And they're going to get that information to you. Usually it's on Twitter. So I would highly recommend those kind of things. That's how you're going to know about those sleepers before other people do. Well, hopefully not too many other people, because hopefully everybody listening is going to go do that. But that's kind of really what you want to do. And I mean, that's how I started using Twitter, really, was to get information about my fantasy teams. And that was, years ago. And so, even more so now, like I said, there's just so many good, thoughtful, people out there putting information out for everyone else, to enjoy and consume. So go follow the smart people out there in the industry that know what they're talking about, and they're going to be able to give you those, options and sleepers, and just kind of keep your ears open.
Yes, and one of those smart people you can find at Stacy_Perez 83 is definitely one of those people that you can find there. Stacy, the draft is just about over. The last pick is about to come off the board, and like we know, it doesn't ever show up for us on the screen.
Oh,
So I'm going to go ahead and pull the draft board down, and bring us back up to normal people size.
normal people size.
The Keep an eye on that draft. I want to see who the last person was taken on that. If you can figure that one out
I
for
will.
us.
You give me 2 seconds. I can pull that up. Let's go see. Where's my little board? Mike Gesicki.
Okay,
Mike Gesicki was the
I'm glad I asked, and I'm glad I patiently waited for that.
it definitely made you so much smarter now that you know Mike Gesicki was the Mr. Irrelevant, right?
Yeah, it's kind of scary that this was an 18-round draft and he still wasn't going in the 20-round drafts. But okay, um,
Maybe they know something we don't.
yeah. Double check location on that, please. Make sure he's not in Miami there. How do you? I want to ask this last question before we get out of here, wrap things up. Thank you to everybody, first of all, that joined us in the chat and in the draft. Charlene, awesome to always have Charlene in the chat there, as well as the draft. How do you assess the impacts of player matchups when we don't have schedules yet, but when you're drafting in these large tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, correlation, right? So we're going to talk so much more about that when we do get the schedules out. But really, it's going to be, looking at those matchups that are towards the end of the season. You're going to be looking at, okay, how do I put a team together that I know for sure is going to be relevant towards the end of the season? That's going to be has something to play for. You're going to be looking for those teams, those players as well. So, I think correlation is so important when you're talking about these big teams like this. There's going to be, schedules out there that actually like put out the entire correlation for all the, fantasy playoffs that you can use in your standalone leagues. That doesn't really mean anything, for you to do as a strategy. But in these bigger tournaments, people are going to be doing that. And it's important to use that as putting your stacks together. Kim, thank you for watching. I saw that your comment in the chat.
Kim, don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere yet. If you're not subscribed to Club Fantasy FFL over on YouTube, please go and fix that now. We are well on our way to the 1,000 subscriber mark. Stacy, next week,
Gator,
you and I are going to go from an 8:30 time slot to 9 o'clock for one reason and one reason only.
Yeah. So
the draft we're going to do.
Yes. So, guys, listen, BBM is going to be there all season long. Okay. We are going to bring back some more BBMs. We promise we are going to do some more of these. We're not going to do them every week though, because that's going to get pretty stale. The point of our show, beyond teaching you guys about best ball, is to show y'all some other formats of best ball, show you some different platforms. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be jumping into the FFPC Superflex Best Ball Tournament, $100,000 prize. $35 entry. Guys, we are going to be putting up the specific league number that we are joining, so that if you are out there, you're listening, you want to play with us. I know that we in the past have had some people say they want to do an FFPC tutorial. This is a perfect one for that. So please, please, please jump in. You're going to see that starting a little bit earlier in the week. That way we can get it out there and make sure everybody is in and signed up and registered. So get ready for that. That is on the horizon.
Yeah, that's coming very, very quickly next week. So if you don't have an FFPC account yet, need to get that all set up. Don't stress. DMs are open for Stacy and myself.
Exactly.
We will help you get through this, and we will be more than happy to get you into our draft. Once we get that set up, we will have a little code that when you go into FFPC, you'll type that code in, boom, and take you right to the room, and we're good to go.
Exactly.
Going on, Nick, this coming week for Club Fantasy FFL. Tomorrow morning, you have Who's Your Caddy, the Golf DFS. Tomorrow evening, no pun intended, the flagship show is at 7. Mock It Like It's Hot on Saturday, 11 a.m. Oh, let me back up 1 second. No pun intended tomorrow. Garrett Price is the guest, from what I'm hearing.
Oh.
So it sounds like something that's going to be a hot show to be watching at. And that one, I think, is going to be moved a little bit later. It may not be at 7. It may be at 8. I'm not positive on that. Keep an eye on YouTube for that. Mock It Like It's Hot at 11 on Saturday. Dynasty After Party at 11 on Sunday. Of course, Chris Battistow, who is in the chat right here with me on Mocking with the Stars, 10 p.m. on Monday. And let me just pull up and tell you, Stacy, who we have as a guest next week. Because, Chris and I have had such a fun time with the guest. We've had guys like Josh. We've had Garrett Price on. We had Laquan Jones on 2 weeks ago. Yes. Iowa Mike from South Harmon was on last night.
Awesome.
We got Shane Manila coming up this week on Monday. Pat Fitzmaurice is going to be joining us. So, yeah.
Shout out to Pat real quick, because he came on our Dynasty 365 show a while ago and mentioned Kamani Vidal as a sleeper pick. And I mean, come on now. Could he have not landed in a better spot there? Love it. So shout out to Pat for throwing us a little Kamani Vidal. So again, guys, it matters who you listen to, right?
Yeah, it absolutely does. And that's why we have the gauntlet that we do. Stacey, let the viewers know what you have going on, what you're working on in and outside. Outside of the divorce stuff. The outside of the attorney divorcing people.
Well, if you guys want some fun lawyer stories, hit me up. I got several from this week. But on the fantasy football front, we've got just putting together all these drafts for you guys, throughout the season, making the calendar and knowing exactly what we're going to jump into. Again, if there's something specifically that you want us to cover, a platform or a specific draft, something like that, let us know. Like, I'm always looking for new things. I've got several out here that I've got kind of planned, but that is not set in stone. So if there's one that you specifically want to do, let us know and we'll put it on the schedule.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. All right, Stacy, it is that time. Class. The bell has rung.
Eh,
Session is over. We are moving on to next week, FFPC next week. I'm ready
yeah.
to do it. I got to dive into some other streets.
Go.
You're going to be playing with some other managers. So,
Mhm.
going to be fun. Going to be fun. Guys, best ball next week, FFPC. We will see you then.